Welcome back to Special Educators Resource Room. I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. Today, we're going to be diving into a topic that every special educator, inclusion teacher, or instructional coach has absolutely faced at some point. What do you do when a general education teacher is struggling with students' behavior and turns to the IEP process for a solution that might not actually be the answer? If this sounds familiar, grab your coffee and your notepad and let's get into it. Hey, special educators, I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. Welcome to the Special Educators Resource Room. If you're like me, you're always looking for ways to save time and streamline your work. That's why this podcast was created, to give you the systems and solutions you need to get your time back. Tune in for tips, tricks, and tools that will help you manage your workload and make the most of your time. Whether you're brand new or experienced, all are welcome in the Special Educators Resource Room. Let me paint a picture for you. A general education teacher comes to you, exhausted. She has a student whose behavior is making it feel impossible to teach. We're talking constantly leaving their seat, interrupting the lesson nonstop, shutting down, refusing to work, and agitating other students. And she's tried everything she knows, and nothing is working. So she refers the student for special education, hoping that either, 1, the student will get an aide to help manage the behaviors, or 2, the student will be moved to a different setting. It's such a tough spot to be in because, let's be real, when you get that type of referral, you already know that an aide or a change in placement isn't likely to happen. But you also know that just saying no without offering real support, that's a fast track to resentment, more frustration, and even burnout for everyone involved. And I do get it. I truly do. This teacher is overwhelmed and she needs something to change. But as a special educator, I also know that an IEP doesn't automatically mean extra staff or a change in placement. So what is our role? We need to support the teacher so she doesn't feel completely abandoned while also addressing the behavior in a way that's actually going to work for the student. Now, this is a true story, and I'm going to share how I handled it. And of course, information has been changed to protect identity. The very first thing I did was observe the student in this teacher's classroom, and I used an ABC recording form. If you need a refresher, ABC stands for A, antecedent. What happened right before the behavior? B, behavior. What exactly did the student do? And C, consequence. What happened immediately after? I sat in the classroom and I just observed. No interventions, no jumping in, just taking notes on what I was seeing. And let me tell you, that is where the magic starts to happen. Because what we think is happening and what's actually happening, they don't always match up. My initial thoughts from this first observation was that this was textbook attention seeking, because I noticed that this student struggled most during independent work time. Transitions were a major trigger, and the behaviors were less frequent when the teacher was giving specific attention, even if it was negative. Now, I knew this teacher was feeling overwhelmed. She needed support, not another complicated system to manage. How often do teachers feel frustrated by being told they need to document whenever they ask for help? But we also need that data. So I designed the simplest behavior frequency tracker possible. Really, it was just a tally sheet. One column had the listed behaviors pre-populated, and all the teacher had to do was make a quick tally mark when it happened. That's it. I wanted this teacher to feel like she had a tool, something that gave her a sense of control over the situation instead of just feeling frustrated. And you know what happened? Once she started using the tracker, she began noticing patterns that she hadn't before. The behaviors weren't just random. They were tied to those transitions, independent work time, and moments whenever the student wasn't getting direct adult attention. Now, I need to interrupt this story to fill in some background information. I really should have provided this at the beginning. So this teacher was fairly new. I think this was her 3rd year of teaching. This student didn't have a long history of disruptive behavior that would warrant a referral or behavior intervention. This child did okay traveling to other classrooms like for specials, but struggled more with unstructured activities like indoor recess or having a substitute. This disruptive behavior was mostly happening in the homeroom where the students spent most of their time. There were no previous academic progress concerns, although now it's starting to show up on our radar because of disrupted classroom instruction. And there's no additional information that we were provided with from the family. It mostly seemed like we were in this cycle of very disruptive, inappropriate behavior that was happening in the classroom. With this additional information and the data that we collected from the frequency tracker, it's time to start thinking about interventions. The first thing we did after identifying that the student was struggling with transitions and independent work was to create a very simple social story. So this was a short visual story that explained expectations in a way that was very accessible and engaging for the student. I used this student's name in the story. We did a quick check-in every morning and reviewed the story, and it was a really positive experience. The student loved the attention. I also provided a copy for the teacher to have and for the student to have inside the classroom. It was just a short paper copy that you could print and run extra copies of. Next, I asked the teacher to build in small moments of positive attention whenever appropriate, like catching the student doing something well. Could be a high five, a quick nice job, or just a head nod. Nothing overwhelming, but consistent. And at first, I'm sure it felt forced, but here's the thing. The more the teacher did this, the more natural it felt, and the student, they started responding. Now, were there setbacks? Absolutely. Some days it felt like we were back at square one, but then we had that frequency tracker that we could refer to. And we could see that those bad days weren't as bad as the worst ones in the beginning. That was my job to point it out. That progress isn't linear, but it was happening. Now here's the truth. The student didn't instantly become a perfect angel, but over time, there were fewer disruptions during independent work. There was less resistance during transitions, and the teacher felt more confident handling the behavior. And the biggest win is that this student moved on to the next grade level without needing all those additional supports. No aides, no change in classroom setting, just simple, targeted strategies that actually worked. And that teacher, she went from wanting the student out to seeing them as capable. So if you find yourself in a situation like this, where another teacher is overwhelmed and looking to the IEP process as the fix, here's your action plan. Step 1, do an observation. I like to use an ABC recording form to see what's really happening. Step 2, make data collection as simple as possible. I provided a quick tally tracker. I had the clipboard, the pen, I hung it up on the wall. I came back every day, collected it, added the fresh sheet, anything that could make it easier for this teacher to collect the data that we needed. Step 3, I introduced a social story. I wanted to make those expectations clear in a way that worked for the student. And step 4, we focused on the small wins. I helped the teacher shift from frustration to feeling more confident by tracking progress, even if it was really small. And most importantly, we supported the teacher. When teachers feel like they have a partner in problem solving, they're way more open to trying new strategies. And that's how we create real change in our schools. Thank you so much for taking a trip down memory lane with me. I hope that it was helpful. Next week, we're going to be diving deeper into social stories. We're going to be talking about how to write an effective social narrative, the best ways to introduce them, and how to make sure that they actually work. So if you've ever wondered, are social stories really that effective? You do not want to miss next week's episode. Until then, keep showing up, keep advocating, and keep believing in what's possible. I'll catch you next week in the Special Educators Resource Room.
Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe buttons so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.